the first camper that we owned, it was $15,000. The second camper that we owned, we paid $2,700. Camper that we own, we paid $200. That's Happy Camper, this resurrection camper, our first resurrection camper that we literally, brought up from the bones. It was literally the frame left, but we thought about it, and they're really, all three of those campers had the same problems and the same issues. There really wasn't a whole lot of difference between this $200 camper and the $15,000 camper and the $2,700 camper, because they all had some issues with water leaks. What is up, Resurrection Ranch family? I am coming to you from our first resurrection camper that we've named Happy Camper and given the identity of Happy Camper. And y'all, I have been thinking about just our last video that we posted about it was so encouraging to tell the testimony of the three campers that we owned and all that Jesus taught us through that process of owning these campers, and just the huge testimony of Resurrection Camper and how we were able to restore and make it useful, super useful for our family, even though it was a huge leap of faith to, risk it on a $200 camper. But we did. And, Tim and I were just talking about it, and what we realized is going to shock you. Seriously, all three campers that we own, we realized something that it was shocking to me when I came to the conclusion. But what we realized was that there wasn't a whole lot of difference between the $15,000 camper, that's the first camper that we own, the lease to own agreement that I told y'all about last video. The first camper that we own, it was $15,000. Now, the second camper that we own, we paid $2,700. And the third camper that we owned, we paid $200. That's Happy Camper, this resurrection camper, our first resurrection camper that we literally, brought up from the bones. It was literally the frame left. But we thought about it, and they're really, all three of those campers had the same problems and the same issues. There really wasn't a whole lot of difference between this $200 camper and the $15,000 camper and the $2,700 camper, because they all had some issues with water leaks. They all had some real, issues with water leaks, rotten wood that needed to be replaced once you uncovered it. But now, the $15,000 camper, all of that was covered over and lipsticked, and you would never know some of the issues until your foot would hit a soft spot. And we would call the camper place, because since we were in a lease-to-own agreement, they were doing the maintenance for that camper. So we called them. We told them what the problem was. They never actually came out to fix it before we, ended that agreement and got out of the camper, because they knew what was up. They knew that it was, a soft spot because there was a water leak, because there was, rotten wood that needed to be replaced, and a leak that needed to be fixed. Now, the second camper that we own, the $2,700 camper, we actually uncovered a water leak resulting from a roof leak, where we had to literally replace the entire roof on our slide out and reframe our entire slide out, replace all the wood there. And so we literally did on that slide out what we did on this entire camper. So the extent, I will give that to you, the extent of the replacement was greater on this camper, but once you've done the work, you've done the work. So it's essentially the same. And the beautiful thing about this camper, our first resurrection camper, is that we saw all the problems. Nothing was hidden under some couch cushions, right? We knew what we were getting into, and we were able to just go in and fix it. So we were just mind blown when we realized that, hey, the $15,000 camper and the $2,700 camper and the $200 camper all had the same problems, and just to the extent was different. So essentially, you don't have to be afraid of the free falling down camper. You don't have to be afraid of the rotten camper, because campers can be astronomically expensive, super duper out of control, as much as a house expensive. And you know what? Those campers, if the seals go bad, can have the same problems as the camper that we're in today. And you know what? All of that can be replaced. So all of the wood can be replaced. Campers are essentially a metal frame and wood, and I would recommend some tin or wood siding if you're looking to restore a camper, or you're looking at a camper that's really falling down, because that's literally what held this camper together as we brought it back when Tim was hauling it back to us. I think he got it in Alabama somewhere, but when Tim was hauling the camper back to us, that's what was holding it together. So the metal frame, if you can get one with the metal siding, something that's not going to decay like the wood when it gets rotten, then you can just, keep the metal framing and then come back, tear out all the wood, and kind of come back with the wood and replace the wood. So, and Tim, at the time, this is kind of where he learned, and it was great for him because he was able to learn on a smaller scale in terms of, framing out whole structures. And he didn't have a whole lot of expertise or experience at the time, but he was just willing to learn. So if you can get a camper for free or very little investment, like $200, $100, $300, and you're willing to put the time in learning and trying, then you really are not losing anything, and you can always, again, sell that camper in the end, even if you get into it and decide, hey, I'm in over my head. You're not losing anything at the end of the day. You're not $100,000 in debt on a camper. So basically, you can only go up from there, right? You can only learn from there. So it's actually, at the end of the day, take that risk, take that leap of faith if you're looking to get a camper, because you can only just grow in knowledge and expertise and learn, even if you learn just a little bit about campers, or you at the end of the day you decide, oh, here's this better camper that doesn't have as much to replace. Maybe you want to start at that $2,700 camper, but you don't have to buy the camper that's all fixed up and has it all together, because it's going to have those same issues and those same problems as your much less expensive camper, as long as you're willing to put in the work. So I could just not, when I thought about all the campers we learned, owned and learned from, I could not believe how similar they were, because you see that, if you see this camper when we first started, just some of the issues, and like literally there was a huge hole in the roof, right? But a hole in the roof is better if you're planning on replacing it and it's there, than something that is, has been painted over and you don't know it's there and you think that it is good. So I was literally mind blown to think about this camper with all the issues that it had, really only having the same issues as our other campers, just to a different extent, and also, clear. Like, we walk in, you see it right away. There's not carpet over the problem. There's not, a ceiling over the problem. You know what the problem is, and you kind of pull up your britches and you're prepared to fix it. So don't be afraid of that very, very inexpensive camper, that free camper that someone's trying to get rid of. If you are willing to step out on faith and jump out there and build it from the ground up. And don't be afraid also, if you're not necessarily going to get into just the $200 frame camper, don't be afraid of the ugly camper, right? The camper that's not all dolled up, fixed up, lipsticked out, techno out, but one that you can customize and change, and it's not just all together when you look at it. Because as I said before, campers can be so expensive because they're playing on, oh, look at this and look at that, and I've got this and I've got that. But really, you may not need those things, and you can always add and customize those things yourself for cheaper. And hey, you can bust out some fabric and cover those couch cushions. You can redo that decor. You don't have to be afraid of the camper that's not all put together. You can take a leap of faith. So that's what we concluded, and I was so mind blown by that, I had to just come in here and drop that on y'all. There was not a lot of difference between our $15,000 camper and our $2,700 camper, and even this $200 camper that I am standing in today, with solid walls, a solid floor, and a solid ceiling, y'all. And if that doesn't encourage y'all, I don't know what will. But I'm super excited to share that testimony with you as well. And that's it, y'all. It's the Resurrection Ranch, and it is still all about God. I will see you on the next one.